Hello and welcome to another engaging episode of Stan the History Man. I'm your host, Dr. Stanley Sandler, and the playlist on the playlist today we have for how I got my low-tech PhD and how I financed it. I better apologize for my appearance here. First of all, I had a fall and had to have a CAT scan, and also, unfortunately, I cut my hair off because this heat dome that's over the Northeast America, so it all worked out, I guess. Well, we want to talk about financing, how I worked my way through my low-tech PhD. And I'll start with my BA degree from a small denominational college in upstate New York. And the first job I had when I was there was on the St. Lawrence Seaway. I was a laborer. And I remember I had to join the laborers union. I'm thinking, well, you want to make a career out of being a laborer. You think of unions for people who are, in kind of professional jobs. But I had to join anyway. I don't know if you have to join a union now, but in those days, I guess they could make you join a union. So I did, pretty much pick and shovel work. And I thought I was doing, all right, until the straw boss, I remember his name was Woody, said, son, pick up them bar joists. I said, what's a bar joist? He said, son, pick up your pay. So I go over to the trailer and pick up my pay. And there was the secretary there was from the college that I was going to at the time. And she said, you've been fired. Uh-oh. So with the money I got from working on the St. Lawrence Seaway, actually it was $1.90 an hour. And that was considered pretty good, high scale union wage. I took the bus down to Philadelphia, where I've been living, at family house in Philadelphia, and got a job, first of all, painting billboards, not painting the actual art, but just the framing and everything. And the pay was $1 an hour. And even then, I remember the boss there was kind of embarrassed when he said $1 an hour. But I was able to get a job at Campbell's Soup Company across the river in New Jersey, and they paid fairly well. And I was able to keep that job throughout the summer of 56. And that gave me enough money. I figured at that time if I could save $800, that would get me through my denominational college. But I remember at the time, the president one time, I think he said at chapel service, that if the price doesn't keep going up like that, we have to keep raising our prices, the small denominational college will be priced out of business. So, he said, no, that's bad. This Eisenhower inflation is really bad. But anyway, it got me through the first year at the small college. The second year, I went to, by this time I met a Canadian girl. I was kind of interested in her. So I went up got a job up in Toronto. And there was with a group of Mennonites called Students in Industry. And they get these corn-fed farm boys from like Indiana. And what the life is really like in the big city in Toronto. So I got a job there. Well, first of all, in a paper mill. And that didn't work out either. Then when that boss said, son, pick up your pay, I knew that I had been fired. So I didn't have a glorious academic or non-academic career. Well, then I read in the paper that the Lever Brothers, the big conglomerate, well, they didn't call them then, but, big company, was hiring foreigners as strike breakers. I figured, well, I'm a foreigner. So I went there to the picket line, and it was blocked off. And one of the picketers said, you don't want to work here, son. I'm thinking, yes, I do. And but there was a break in the traffic, and the picket line dashed across the street, and hey, stop that kid. And I got a job there in Campbell's, in Lever Brothers. What I did there was the oils, they would filter stuff, and they had these filters that I had to clean. And so I would spend 8 hours a day cleaning filters. It wasn't bad. But it was just boring. I must admit, I'm easily bored, and that job bored me. But still, I can't complain. I'll tell you something else about Lever Brothers. They paid us in what the British call pay packets. As late as 1957, I got my pay in an envelope. And I'm thinking, here I'm walking around with a 2 weeks pay, but Toronto didn't have that much crime, so I guess you're safe there. but I take the streetcar home, wonderful streetcars in Toronto, they still have them. And I noticed like everybody on the streetcar was drunk, except I presume for the driver. But it was, I don't know what's going on. What's the Toronto at 3 o'clock in the morning? They're all drunk. But anyway, again, I saved maybe like $900 this time. And I should also say I was staying at this hostel that the Mennonites had rented or bought in Toronto. And we would have lectures on, capitalism and how the Mennonites can live in the industrial world. But it kind of sounds kind of basic to me, but at any rate. And I also hitchhiked out from Toronto to Waterloo to meet my girlfriend. Well, she didn't consider myself, she's been a good friend. I meet her. And again, you could hitchhike without fear of being chopped up, so at different times, different places. So that was the second year of denominational college. The third year, let's see, 1950. My dad got me a job at Boeing Aircraft down in New Mexico, Roswell. Roswell. Oh, yes. Well, but this was 1959. So this was like 12 years before the incident at Roswell came out, and nobody was saying anything. They said, well, it was a pandemonium there when the bodies were brought into Roswell Air Force Base to be examined and everything, but the government hit it off. Well, nobody said anything like, son, if you'd been here in 1959, you would have seen something. But at any rate, so I went to work for Boeing Aircraft, and I was a bucker boy, as I'd hold a bar against a rivet, and the guy at the other end had the rivet gun. He'd pound it, and I'd smear so the rivet would catch. So that was my high-tech job at Boeing Aircraft. And it's interesting, the first time the gang did this, was a contract. The first time the gang did it, took us about a week and a half to put. They were reinforcing the wings of the B-52s. We do about a week and a half per plane. By the end of the time there, a month or so later, we were knocking out. We had time left over. I noticed also that the what do you call it? The yoke, the steering yoke. The pilot and co-pilot originally had a classy Thunderbird design on it, sunk into plastic and all. Very, very. All of them were ripped up by souvenir hounds. But at any rate, again, I made a fair amount of money living with my parents, so of course I didn't have much expense that way. And so that was my third year. And then I graduated early in the following year, 1960, so I didn't have to worry about a job there right away. So that's how I got out. Went through my undergraduate career. And again, as I say, the difference in finance and everything, that $800, $900, and maybe I do some work in the kitchen, that sort of thing. I never asked my parents for money. I never even thought about it. And I don't think anybody said, that's unusual. How come your parents aren't helping you? Dad had a good job in the Air Force and so on, but it never dawned on me. And of course, I graduated from there with no debt. And I'll tell you, the first time I noticed this, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but I was teaching at a small college in upstate Pennsylvania, and the word went around that this guy, it's so unusual. And the first time I remember the guy's name even, he's in debt. He's graduating in debt. We're saying the poor guy, graduate from college in debt. So then I got a job as a camp counselor in this is 1960. Well, first of all, I got a job in the library. Let me tell you about how I got that job, different times and everything. I figured, well, I'm trying to get ready for my first graduate degree, so I need money for that. I figured, well, the city of Philadelphia then was going through like a renaissance. The old days of Philadelphia, corrupt and contented, were over, and they're really moving forward and hiring a lot of people. So I went down to City Hall to apply for a job. So I'm sitting there applying, filling out forms and everything. And this guy comes along dressed in a suit and everything. He says, excuse me, sir, are you a college graduate? I said, yeah. He said, follow me. So I follow him up this cast iron spiral staircase. This is inside Philadelphia City Hall, which is a real, well, in those days we call it Victorian horror. Today it was a great prize Victorian thing. I go up this spiral staircase, and here's a room with indirect lighting. I remember the wood and the tables were filling out for were like inlaid wood. And the guy said, this is for the place for college graduates. BAs. I'm a BA from a no-name college, and so I got a job as a substitute teacher, and I was paid $20 an hour. What am I saying? $20 a day, the teaching. So I kind of enjoyed that, even though I signed up for some of the worst schools downtown, because I figured, well, they were the ones that need the substitutes the most. And even though I had a little bit of trouble, but not too much, and they were kind of good ones as well, teaching students. I remember one time I heard some music coming up through the air shaft, and I think was Mozart on the Kleine Nacht music. And the guy told me, said, "Oh, we love the music of Mozart and Beethoven." I mean, I kind of enjoyed hearing that. So anyway, then after that, for that summer, I got a camp counselor's job. And then in that fall, I was married in that fall of 1962. And then Mrs. Sandler and I got a job at a Christian, what they call them, up in Canada, they call it college, Niagara Christian College. And I taught history and English there. And that was very, very pleasant. And you didn't have to fill out all kinds of, have this degree or that degree or anything, or go to a college of education. So it was very, very enjoyable. And that time, then I'm thinking about, well, now what am I going to do? I am a military historian. I figured by that time, that's what I should get into, military history. So I wrote around to different with letters, and I wrote around. I didn't have a typewriter then, so I just wrote to other military historians, say, who's the best guy I can write about this? And everybody said, Sir Michael Howard. And I didn't Sir then, just Michael Howard. So I wrote to Michael Howard, and Michael Howard wrote back and said, okay, apply. I applied. Now, he, I think, presented my name and my background to well, wait, I'm jumping ahead of myself, okay? After for my master's degree, when I was working in Philadelphia in the library, I was notified that I had this wonderful fellowship from the state of New York, the New York State Regents Teaching Fellowship. And all I had to do in exchange for it was to teach in a school in New York State for 1 year. So I said, okay, I'm going to Columbia. And I did. And this thing was so lavish, I should say, that it's $2,200, and that was for room, board, tuition, and what the English call walk around money, or beer money. Okay, and so that put me through Columbia, and I didn't really do that well with my professor. He said, "Okay, you're good enough for a MA rather, but." You have to go elsewhere for your PhD. So then after I got my MA from Columbia, then I taught in this small Christian college I was telling you, and then applied to Michael Howard and the London University Department of War Studies, which Michael Howard had founded. So he wrote back, letters, everything is by letter. Oh, I should tell you that when I got the notification of my fellowship, it was by telegram. We still use telegrams. I think they phoned it through and say you have a telegram with the good news. So I'm going to go and get my PhD at London. Well, okay, I had worked in a fertilizer factory at Niagara Falls when I was teaching at a small college. They didn't pay really enough to, see me through and overseas and everything. And so the two of us worked, and then I had enough money to go overseas. And the cost for the PhD then, we ascertained, I think was about $400. or was it 400 pounds? I'm not sure. Looking back, it doesn't make any difference. But that's English. I think English universities are still considerably cheaper than American universities. So again, with Mrs. Sandler working as a teacher's assistant, she was able to pay the requirements for a PhD at the University of London. And again, I graduated from the University of London with no debt. So, and the I should, everything was by, of course, by hand, and it just didn't have that much expenses. I mean, we lived in a single room, and took the tube to work, or to doing my research, and so that got me. Then in June of 1965, I got my low-tech PhD. And I just tell you how I got it. By how I was notified. By the time I was teaching at a university in Canada, I got a letter, a typewritten letter saying this is from the dean of the, not even the dean, for the registrar, that you have been awarded a PhD from the University of London, and signed. I think it was actually original signature, but that's how they informed me that I had my low-tech PhD, and that's basically how I did it financially. Well, thank you for listening to Stan the History Man, and we look forward to having you join us again. Goodbye.